going to cater it. TRG is going to cater the dinner. We're asking the agents if they want to bring a dessert. We don't really want everybody to bring a dessert. Of course, I would like everybody to bring dessert, but you don't have everybody bring dessert. Robert is going to attend bar, and we're going to have some entertainment. So it's 5 to 8 p.m. on Thursday night, December 9th.
Dessert and toy.
Oh, yes, and Connie's, she should be here pitching that now. It's the holiday season, right? Yeah, so we do our annual toy drive. Also, bring a toy to the party. Anything else? Mention that? Okay.
The invite will go out today, once you guys approve it.
Okay. Good.
I think you guys already got it, but the vendors got it.
All right, Sue. This, you all know Sue Hahn, Coach House Escrow. She's our escrow officer.
Okay, so what are we doing today? I mean, most of you guys have been in the business for one pagers. Half a page. Okay. So I don't know. What should we, I over a couple things. The one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, and we'll talk about this again maybe in January or February after the new contract changes. Our RPH is going to change, so a lot of stuff is changing. We're still going back with car as well. The Escrow Association, we're still going back with car because there's a lot of stuff that kind of still up in the air. So I'm still getting educated in that. I'm still learning that part. So when we figure this out, I think the new forms come out, I think in December. Is that what it is?
Second week of December.
So, yeah, so
Required in January.
yeah, it's required in January. So you'll see a lot of new contracts, and we're gonna have a lot of questions and a lot of the way that escrow's process is gonna be a little different too. But the basics will stay the same. That's always going to be, you have the right seller. And if it's an entity, I know they did this in my last lunch and learn. If you have a seller and it's a trust, I'm gonna tell you right now, if the original trustees are alive, I don't need the trust agreement. If the original trustees are alive, the title does not need the trust agreement. They need a current truster. And I'm gonna say the word current because everybody gives me it. But this is what my attorney gave me. It's dated 1968. I don't think that's very current. So it has to be current meaning 2021. So they want a current truster for the original trustees. But if the trustees are deceased and they're successor trustees, yeah, before you do anything else, get a full copy of the trust agreement, submit it to your title company, and make sure you've got the right seller signing. Because we've had a couple of files where there was an argument, and he says I'm the trustee, and then she says I'm the trustee, and we have another one where the trustee just, you'd be amazed at how many issues can come up. I've got a few clients here that, we went through this, and they said, well, my attorney did this. Well, that's great, but the attorney that did it didn't know what he was doing. And that could get everybody into trouble. So if the trustees are deceased, anyone, you need to give us a full trust agreement. If they're not deceased, I don't need it. I just need a current trustee. So when you open escrow, let me know, are there any trustees deceased or not? And when you get it signed, if they're successor trustees, you can't put the seller as successor trustee, meaning they're, you have to put name of the trust and then they'll sign that successor trustee. I'm getting some contracts that are saying whatever the trust as a signer and that they're not. At that point, because it's a successor trustee. So make sure the name of the trust is in there and then the signer is the successor trustee. If it's the original trustees, you can just have them sign without having the name of the actual trust. Just them signing the trustee, but if it's a successor trustee, it's an entity. That's where your RCST jumps in. That's why we have the RCST. And
So RCST stands for?
Disclosure. So that tells you, and even with entities, LLCs, corporations, you want to get that signed because a lot of these people, especially flippers, and if they've done this for a long time, there's a handful of flippers out there that are really good. The entities, they have everything down to the T because they know they do this often and they know what the title company they're going to ask for. So they have all the paperwork. We've got some young ones or some new ones that, want to start the business and they don't have any paper. I had one guy give me documents and I go, well, where's your LLC documents? He goes, here it is. This is what you're looking for. I'm like, yeah, but you told me you were the only one. He goes, yeah. I see 4 people here. He goes, no, let's just take them off. I'm like, how? He goes, you just take them off. I go, liquid paper? I'm like, did you kill them? How am I gonna take them off? I can't. But you have to pay attention to them. They know. That's great. But
So on the RCSD, what do we do in a purchase agreement? Because we usually don't know who's necessarily buying it or even a listing agreement. And half the time, we don't check that box. Now, my understanding with any contract law is once something's signed, you can't change anything to it, but we need to attach this to it somehow.
yeah, but then when you're getting a listing, you don't know who your seller is. That's the problem then. Before you get
Well,
a
it may have
listing,
changed. I mean, they may not know who the seller is.
no, that's why you have to get a property profile, you have to do some due diligence. You can't just blindly walk into a house and, oh, hi, my name is, anybody want to sign this? It could be your house.
Yeah, but 50% of the time, it's changed on us. And we had no idea, and even the sellers had no idea.
It can't change, because bottom line is, it's either the trust, and if they're all dead, it's the probate. If that doesn't happen, it's an entity or an individual. And if it's an individual, that could be a probate if only one person owned it. If it's a husband and wife, it's joint tenants, you're safe. But there's no way that it's gonna change within 6 months. That seller that you have of record, because the county tax assessor, he passes the title on your tax roll. So even on the tax roll, it'll show who your
But the
seller is.
tax roll is 50% wrong too. Because I can fill in my information for my dad's property as I'm receiving the tax bill, and an agent's gonna think that I own that property now,
No,
not him.
the mailing address, the Carol is not, it will not.
No, I can
they
change
won't-
all of that
Yeah,
information.
no, but the tax roll, that name you see there, and this is one of, I forgot whose color it was, where the tax roll did not, there was a deed recorded, but the county tax assessor would not pass out that deed, so that name never changed. There, I forgot whose about that was, and we had a hard time getting that, because it was, what was that? And it took her almost, oh my God, I think 6 months to get that, and she literally went to the assessor's office every day with all the paperwork. That's how bad it got. The tax collector will not change the name if they don't pass. That's how we know when a deed is not passed for the assessor. The title won't pass it either, because they can't insure it. So when you get a listing, you can't blindly go into somebody's house and say, well, okay, I'm gonna take your word for it, because as a matter of fact, in my last conference, what the attorney had told us is, that when the new RPA comes out, we're gonna have to start writing letters to the seller and the buyer. And the welcoming, hi, congratulations on your new purchase on the sale. And you mail it to their address before you process the escrow, because there's so much fraud going on. People are, and some of it's not even fraud. Some of the files that are in litigation right now are issues like yours. That's why when you get a seller to sign or a buyer to sign as an entity, and he's not allowed to sign, but they cancel, your buyer's gonna get stuck with the money in that escrow because he was a wrong seller. I mean, he was a wrong buyer. He can't sign for the money. But the actual seller doesn't want to sign it now, or the buyer that has the authority to sign. He doesn't want to sign it. So now that money's in escrow, just sitting there and everybody's fighting. There's a lot of files that are in litigation for that. And so when you do a listing, to a certain degree, you should do your due diligence. You can't just walk and say, it's like if I come up to you and say, oh, hi, tell him, I want to sell this house. You see this building, this is mine. Let me just.
So Sue, one of the things, it's not our agent's job to look at a trust and see who the owner is.
Right.
So if we're listing a property and it's in a trust and they're still alive, we can ignore it, right? And have the owner sign the property. If it's a successor trustee and that person says, hey, I have authority to sign on this, we get a copy of the trust, we have them sign the RCSD,
Right.
and we give it the title. But we do not determine.
Yeah, you don't have to determine.
Right.
Because
So
it's
we're
also-
basically, just so that everybody knows, we are going on blind faith on what they're telling us until it's confirmed.
To a certain degree.
If we don't,
Yeah.
it's not our responsibility to look at
Yeah,
that
but I was
trust.
going off what Danny's saying, he's saying he doesn't know the seller at all, but you should know.
Well, no, we have the seller telling us that he has the authority, and so we have to go by that until title.
Right.
But that's only a couple of days.
The one crazy Long Beach commercial property I had, they found out that the owner that's still alive gave it to all of her 3 sons, and they all had 30% of the half. So it's like, how am I supposed to know all that? Because I just had her sign one thing in the beginning, but I mean, obviously, after title does their research,
But
we
we're
know.
protected because they signed that RCST saying that they have authority. So
Yeah,
then we
but he's
just have
talking
to
about the
confirm.
31.3%. That's what he's talking about.
owners do crazy stuff.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, and then I have to admit, your owners do a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, this is really important. I had a listing, 8 months. We got 2 weeks from closing, and it was for 3 heirs, and it was a trust. And one of the heirs said, I'm going through my mom's papers, and I find amendment 3 to the trust. And so what I did, I had them contact the lawyer, found that there were 7 different amendments to the trust. What the mom had done, the dad had passed away, and so for 8 years, mom had been all alone. One of the daughters would piss her off. She would change them to, make somebody else a successor trustee. We found, contact the lawyer who had made the trust out, because they probably have that information on file. But again, we don't do it as the agent. We had them do it and pull it out. So this is important. When you hit the word trust, you got to
Yeah.
really check it out.
Any entity, but that's a really good point, because another problem is, Jack, that's a really good, only because that's happened recently, where half of these people right now because a lot of the property that we sold are their original owners, like, it's like they've had it for a gazillion years, and these kids, they're all older now, they're in their 70s themselves. There's no loan on the property, but they don't know what's happened to the trust. No, how many of you guys talk to your moms and did you change your trust yesterday? Or, we don't know. We know they have a trust, but that's about it. They might have made amendments. And, I have a lady that was pissed off and she kept changing her trust too. One day she gets everything, the next day she gets nothing. I disown her. I take her back. And the thing is, if they don't tip there are amendments, that's what happened to another filing. There are amendments, and that'll throw a wrench in your closing the day of. Because someone's gonna pop up and say, oh, by the way, did you see my amendment number 7? And what through 6 then? Because they didn't tell us. There's no way anybody could have known. So things like that could happen, but that's really important. A lot of these, your sellers that are successor trustees, they don't know that there are amendments because they never talk about it. You don't want Thanksgiving dinner say, by the way, how many of you guys changed your trust agreement recently, Dad or Mom? And because they don't know, that becomes a bigger issue. And that's a really good point there. If there are amendments and they don't know. In that case, there's nothing anybody can do. Nobody's fault at that point, but still, if you try to do your best to do due diligence prior to doing that. If it's an entity, you need your LLC or corporation, you need corporate documents, your LLC documents, make sure they have the authority. The operating agreement or bylaw resolution, because I had a guy that they owned the business and 3 brothers. They were the best of friends, made good money, and was a contractor, got married, put a down payment in the house. The money came from a third party, so I said, okay, give me a third party deposit. Why? This is my company. Well, I get it, but even though it's your company and you're the only sole proprietor, it's fine. I still needed the company to give the money to you. Well, it's my money. I'm giving it to myself. I get it. I still need it. Argue. If you don't give it to me, I can't use your money. I can't go to Escrow and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll get it for you. Yeah, his brothers came with the attorney, knocked on my door and said, I never said you could use that money. The brothers owned the company together. And they hated the girl he was getting married to. They hated her. Oh my God. And so, yeah, that's not his money. Even with the trust, if the money comes in from a trust, even though you're the successor, you're the original trustee, because the money is in the trust from your trust account, what happens is that money belongs to the trust and the heirs. So you have to sign off on that. So things like that. So if you know you have a buyer, that's an entity, make sure that the money is coming from their account. Let's say the company was called Palm West. Make sure Palm West is going to give money from their account. If Palm West is giving me money from Scott Crawford's account, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to track him down and make him sign that. Because I can't use that money. And then we have, entities that have whatever, ABC Inc., giving money to XYZ Inc. It's like, well, why can't you just give me your receipts? It goes, I own all the companies. Well, then just give me from your own company. Why are you wasting my money? And then that's another red flag for fencing, which is another issue. For money laundering and it just gets, geographical target for foreign investments in,
And when these close, they're always made payable then to the trust.
to the trust or the entity.
Okay, so if the people are still alive, they can sign saying, hey, make it payable to Joe,
No. The trust. And the-
even if they're alive.
even if they're not.
So every trust needs their EIN number.
No, that, the EIN number only is, it takes effect if the original trustees are deceased, then you have to have EIN. number.
So like, I have a trust, but I need a trust account for my trust.
So you should open up a bank account for that trust.
Or add that name to your account.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is, that money is, when you put your assets in a trust, that it belongs to the trust, and whatever the trust says is, that money rightfully is your heirs money, once you pass, according to your trust. So, maybe somebody gave you $1 million, your son said, hey, I want to give $1 million, that's in your trust, so that's his. So, depending on how you structure it, that's, the point is, it's the money for the entity, pretty much. Although you are the trustee, it still belongs to the trust. And then as soon as your trustees are both deceased, they have to submit for EIN number. And they have to have a bank account under the name of the trustee.
But not, for example, if there's two, if it's a couple.
If it's a husband and wife,
Exactly, the wife is the one that is alive,
Uh-huh.
that doesn't matter, right?
yeah, she could use her social for her, because it's all for taxes, and she'll be the
She'll, yes,
trustee.
for
Yeah,
five.
surviving trustee, yeah. So, but you have to, if they're deceased, you have to have EIN. And it takes like, what, 5 minutes to get it online? So it's time for my office, but it doesn't take. But then without that,
If both trusters are deceased, and if it was a revocable trust, then it becomes an irrevocable trust.
yeah, if any trust, most of the trust 9% are gonna be revocable unless you have one of those trusts where farmers and merchants will be your trustee, then that can be irrevocable, because they do that for a reason, but 99% of the time it's gonna be a living revocable trust. But once both trustees pass away, it automatically becomes irrevocable, automatic, because the settlers are no longer. So that automatically be irrevocable, so no one can change it. That's why they need a full copy of the trust at that time, because whatever that trust says is what's gonna happen. And the successor trustee has to settle. I have a lot of successor trustees tell me, well, I paid this out of pocket. You need to settle it after everything's done. That has to be settled. For the trust agreement, after everything's done. That's not up to me. Well, I need to make this payment, the roof, because I had this house to, nothing I can do. You can't make a check payable to the roof. It has to go to the trust. And the successor trustee needs to be either reimbursed for services or, for fees or, whatever they need to do.
So I want to hit, if there's any other topics you want to hit, then I want to ask some time for questions also.
And then the last is, when you guys do, this is gonna be you next year. When you have repair requests, don't throw those at escrow and say, well, it's on the RR. So we're gonna give them 6,000 in lieu of, whatever, because once you give me that, I gotta give it to the lender. And no lender's gonna wanna lend on that, or they're gonna want to see the full report. So if you're gonna give me credit, that's great, that's fine. Just give me an addendum. All I need is, seller to credit buyer, whatever report close.
So the request for repair can go between buyer and sellers. They can fill all that out. They can come to an agreement for X amount of dollars. But that does not go to escrow. It's just do an amendment, whatever was decided, and then that goes to escrow for closing costs.
Just give me an
So it could be
addendum.
duplicated then, because some of
I'm
us,
sorry, an addendum, and then escrow will write an amendment.
so it could be duplicated because generally the form already says that,
Correct,
the way we fill it out.
correct. Yeah. But we just do a separate form on that addendum for escrow.
Because, your form says in lieu of repairs, seller shall.
Well, it could be closing costs, it could be
Yeah,
anything
but it's in
on,
lieu of the repairs you give it for closing costs. So for us, for the lender, they don't want to see that. Because when you give a repair, an RR, they're gonna say, well, let me see your repair request. And then you've got plumbing, roof, leaking roof, and, cracked foundation, and then you're not gonna have any lender they're gonna want a brand new house before they lend on that. So now you lost your money. It's gonna be willing to pay top dollar. So that, you just want to avoid that. But whatever comes to me, I have to give to the lender. That's my fiduciary duty. I have to disclose it. I don't want to know it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it. I just need an addendum to tell Escrow what we need to do. Give credit, or not. That's it. So that's like the most important thing is we don't want repair requests. And I don't want people calling me and saying, oh, they have all this termite and this mat, so we're gonna do this. You tell me I have to tell the lender, so you're gonna give credit or not, that's all.
Yeah, and the same for that termite, since you brought that up, if there's no mention of the termite in the RPA, then you're not involved.
Yeah, I can't even pay for it, like the report. They said, well, just, it's okay, just, I can't, it's not part of the contract.
It was interesting, my seller decided to get a termite report, it wasn't requested. But she decided to do it anyway, just in case something came up in the home inspection. Nothing has been requested. I have a copy, nobody knows.
Okay, so
So what happens?
as I tell everybody, I think all agents, when they get a listing, that's one of their first phone calls is either to the city to order that city report. This is before you have a buyer, and to the termite, either Buckmaster or Andy's, to get that termite inspection. It's free, right? And you want to know if that's going to be, $200 or $20,000.
Right,
And any report that you get, as you know, Carol, has to be turned over to the buyer.
Right.
Any report, any estimate of any work that that seller has gotten on the property, it's all on that SPQ. Anything has to be turned over. So especially if you get a termite. I always like having that up front so that you'll know what that issue is. You don't want to wait until they do all their inspections and they get their termite guy out there and finds out it's $10,000 and they have to renegotiate this contract. A couple of weeks into it. So hit it up front. What I do if there's a lot of work is on that counter offer, I'll say, hey, the buyers to accept this counter offer, no termite work. And I'll put for report dated such and such from.
we only give you credit for something else.
That's okay. But
Accepted the credit, and there it is.
Yeah, our last two listings that we've done, we've actually put it in the supplements on the MLS. So we're about 5 years behind the San Francisco Northern. They use Disclosures.io and they also use their MLS to give you everything. So it's kind of like how, if you're familiar with hard courts, they do like an auction style. Same thing is you're buying it based on all the information. Everybody gets to see it. You don't get asked for anything. You're buying it for that amount.
yeah, and that's why in the Bay Area, they're doing these offers with no contingencies. And that seller's agents, it's because everything is already posted. They've already seen a home inspection, they've seen a termite report, they've seen everything there. So it holds more water than what we do down here because the buyer really doesn't know what they can't see.
Right.
Yeah, I just got, a lot of times you get a termite report, you don't like it, so the seller gets another termite report. Then you have to submit both of those termite reports to the buyer. You can't pick and choose. You gotta give everything. So just do one, don't do a second. And I saw one, a house over in Portuguese Bend. And it said, if you want to make an offer, please go to this website and basically approve all of the disclosures. And you go to that website and there's the TES, SPQ, actually a home inspection. And you're supposed to read that and sign those and then submit those with your offer. So it's kind of like what they do in Northern California. So there was
The
the buyer.
Long Beach
seller
one I
involved,
had,
yeah,
it
didn't
had a
wanna have all
roof
the hassle
report for
with
$10,000.
Yeah.
So all these things I put on there because I knew that I didn't want to have to pay for it. And the seller was out of state. So it's just to make everything easier, I got it all up front. And I think it took 6 months to get the listing. So
But Danny, who paid for all those reports?
the seller did.
The seller.
Or they had knowledge of it before because there was like a leak 2 years ago. So I had her do the SPQ. I put that on there as well because, she never lived in the property. I just had to disclose as much as possible on it.
Yeah, so no term, if it's not part of the contract, leave it out. But again, if you want to disclose it, disclose it. Going back to the city report, same thing. If it's a city of LA, that, if every other city, the city reports, you guys should be getting it in the beginning. When you get the listing, like Dirk does, order it, get the report started. The only report that we will help you with in escrow now is the city of LA, because it's kind of tedious. You can do it online, but there's a certain way you have to do it, or it's going to get rejected. Like, yeah, so. that's the
Gina's got
only-
rejected
Yeah.
6
the only-
times.
Yeah, the only one we'll help you is the one for City of LA. That's the one we can actually help with, but every other report, you guys should be doing prior to. You can tell with the City of LA as well prior to, but they didn't get the, seller's credit card number, they gotta sign some paper and stuff like that, so that we will assist you, but all the other reports, get it in the beginning. Retrofitting for the City of LA, don't guess on that water certificate in the 90 cent report, just hire LGS or whatever, retrofitter, like $400 or $500. Have your seller pay for it through escrow, but it's better than you trying to figure out what kind of toilet it is. That I don't know either. No one knows. We're not plumbers. And we're not meant to know. So it's just easier for the City of LA. Just hire a retrofitter, let them take care of it. They'll sign all the forms. They'll give you, they'll fill out the application and it makes life easier for everybody. At least we're all doing it.
Isn't there another form in conjunction with the 9A?
The certificate of compliance.
Oh, is that what?
Yeah.
The
So
low
they'll,
flow water. thing.
yeah, so they'll do both. of them.
You get reported.
Yeah, so they'll do both of them with their license number.
And they'll do
then
smoke detectors and carbon
Yeah.
monoxide too.
That whole thing, 9A report, and so everything gets covered, so just have the, LGS is that the one?
I think it's LGS, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a retro metro or something like
Well,
that.
there's
That-
another.
Yeah, I think it's Retro Metro, I
Yeah,
think.
that thing, yeah, retro, so there's a few companies out there,
And
just,
for $100,000, they do everything, water heater strapping, all of it. Like,
yeah,
you
they
name
take
it.
care of everything, at least then you guys are covered, because if you're sitting there trying to guess it and then you sign with your number, your license number, it's gonna come back to you, if it's not done. And if the buyer down the line feels, I paid way too much for this property, when the market goes down, they'll figure out, they'll look for something to come back.
I just think that, and don't use this problem. It is terrible. And it's hard to myself. You know, and it's sign. So over somebody
That's LGS retrofitter, Metro, and then one other company, but they specialize in that.
So retro escrow.
I think it's Retro Metro.
I've got it in my phone now, so if you need that, call Danny, call me. We'll be good.
For Redondo Beach, there's a city report, but if it's a townhouse, are they still required to do a city report? Okay. And is it best for the seller to go to the city to do it? They can do it online. They can do it online.
Yeah, it's complicated. I do it for my clients.
Yeah,
So.
he usually does.
Oh,
I think Redondo, you pay for it and then you have to submit an email, like it's a complicated.
Receipt. Yeah, it's a receipt. I would, I mean, you have a millennial client, I guess it's okay, but,
But that website's hard to navigate too. It's not.
because I've had agents not been able to do it, so I've done it for my clients. We got it.
and you-
Gardena, I don't think needs it for the condos, right?
Yeah, Gardena, so,
but you went in and paid for it and then just got
Yes.
it back last time.
Yes.
mm,
Yeah, because you have to submit both the application and the receipt that you all do online, because Redondo is still closed.
Yeah, you know what, I did call him, and I did find that out, but I wanted to hear it again,
Yeah.
because I haven't done it in North Redondo, he's too busy to even fill out my disclosure yet, so.
And they will accept it from the agent. It's not like the seller has to.
so most of the cities are closed, still closed, so try to get the report ordered as soon as possible. So you guys are not having problems later on. And then the last thing is, when you do, starting with the new RP as well, you guys should have this statement of information for the seller to sign and get that filled out with your contract and bring that to when you open your escrow. The statement of information for the seller. So when you get the listing, when you get the contract signed,
That's great for your file also to have all that information.
yeah, it's for your problem.
Well, essentially, it's the cover sheet in zip forms if you, with their social, and that's really, and then previous marriages and stuff like that.
So that way you can get the name clear. You send that to.
So you can put it, I mean, you can put it in there. Yeah.
So get the SI, when you guys are getting your contracts and this thing. So that's.
Good tip.
That would be- If you need a blank SI, I have them, so come back.
Any other questions for Sid?
Also, I know one of the transactions we had it were one of the either successor trustees or was a minor. So that was kind of interesting, right? Because they had to,
If you're a minor, they've actually, a new thing came on that. I just got something like 2 weeks ago.
I remember we had one transaction where the third party or the third trust, one third of it went to this minor.
Yeah, he got it as a minor, and so then can you sign for it or not? That's another problem. So we have to, because she was like 1 or 2 years shy of becoming
Yeah,
legal, and yeah.
so she
So
just
you
waited till
go
she was
to the
18.
title company then to get clarification since they're the ones that
Yeah,
are
so
issuing.
if you give me the statement of information, I send it to them, and they do a GI run, and that's a Nexus, and they run your clients to see whatever they need to get from them. So, but they have to be clear. The lenders require it, and even the lenders usually, they want that SI requirement cleared in the beginning. The first thing they say, they give you a list of items that they need to escrow, please provide the following, and the last one is the supplement for the SI clearing. So get the SIs in.
I just figured with more trust and COVID and stuff happening, like
Yeah.
elderly people can pass away very fast, and then the only heirs left over could be minors.
Right, so make sure that you guys get the SI. And then, one last thing is, when title to the property. This gets really weird. Maybe I should do this in January. Yeah,
Okay, and another policy of Coach House is that you don't do the instructions until the deposit comes in. So we want to make sure that that buyer's deposit gets into escrow right away. What is the fallout rate? What has it been this past year?
oh God, I'd say 50%. What? Yeah, you'd be amazed. People were throwing in offers just to get in escrow, but these buyers were doing, where they're throwing in 10 offers. Yours wasn't the only offer. They put it every, because they were losing.
My
so
dad,
much.
I've always been 50% though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the reason I like you to hear that from Sue is that when you're representing sellers, you've got to let them know what the market is like out there because they think it's sold. You know, they get an offer, and we just have one on the triplex. And, we're probably going to go through 3 or 4 offers, and you've got to let your seller know that, hey, this is just the first step. Most of these don't go forward. And if our escrow is saying half of them don't after they open escrow, we haven't even gotten that plan.
I would just tell them when they signed the grant deed, it's
Yeah.
done.
But make sure your sellers understand, educate them that it may have to take a few offers to get through this. And that's another reason why you want to keep those time frames tight. You don't want to hear this in 21 days, which is what the default is in the contract. It's okay to hear it in a week or 10 days, but you don't want to wait that much time.
I'm in escrow right now, and the listing agent told me it was a multiple offer situation. And the listing agent told me that they did not go with the highest offer because he's been in business a while, and he had this feeling that the buyer that he was the highest was writing offers all over town. And sure enough, it didn't happen. The second, or the escrow that he did accepted had cold feet, and they bailed and went back to the highest offer, and they're in escrow on something else. So that's how I ended up.
That's not, yeah, that's why we have to, we were busy trying to get those instructions out, but we decided we was wasting too much time. So now unless we know you're serious, because the thing was these buyers were putting in offers everywhere because they were not getting accepted. So they just threw the net, and whatever they got, whatever they can get, they get. But then yours is probably number 7 in line. They wanted this other house, but they didn't want to lose anything else. So that's what they were doing. They were putting offers in like 10 at a time. And they were canceling them too. So we did about 50% for cancel.
It's good to know. All right, any other questions?
So the whole trust thing, if the people end up being deceased, but the bank accounts never went into the trust, they just were the beneficiaries, the money can then go to them direct, right? It doesn't have to go in the trust.
If it's in the trust and the trustees are deceased, then
Even though the bank accounts never went under the trust?
the bank, at that point, you have to do an EIN number and you have, at that point, as soon as they deceased, you gotta get an EIN number and you have to establish
The
that trust
successor trustee can take the trust to the bank and get an
account with the EIN number.
named, opened in that trust name.
Because I was told like, with my trust is our bank account, and try to put our kids as beneficiaries, so they can go in and close those accounts.
Yeah, your personal account, any personal checking, savings or whatever, you should put your kid's name as, or whoever you want as a beneficiary. You
And
name
not
it.
to put in the trust. not-
You don't have, not your bank, not your personal bank account or checking account. You should just identify a beneficiary. But when it becomes a successor trustee issue, when the original trustees have passed, the successor trustee has to establish an EIN number and open that account, because like for you, let's say you've got 4 kids, that trust has to pay them out the way you want them paid out.
Got it.
Okay, so that's
So they have to open up the trust account, so it can look for that.
right, from after your accounts, your trust has been settled.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I got another question on closings. How often do agents choose a weekend or a holiday like next Thursday as a closing for an escrow that they can't close on?
You know what, I'm sorry if I have to say this. You guys, but people don't look at things, I'm like, I have people at Saturdays, Sundays,
Okay,
Christmas.
so 3 years ago, July 3rd was on a Friday. And I had an escrow scheduled to close, maybe it was 5 years ago, on July 3rd.
Feel like the holidays on the
Who
fourth.
knows? No, the 4th of July was celebrated on Friday. All banks, and everything were closed on Friday. That was the holiday that year. I've never experienced that. And
So
it
just-
really screwed up
Everything.
yeah, because they had, everybody has movers, and it was all my fault because I didn't know. And
Just
escrow didn't tell me. Fortunately, we have one now that's closing on this topic.
This should be at the 11th on
The
Veterans Day.
11th is Veterans Day.
a Thursday, which
and
is,
we have it
I don't think
closed
it's
on
ever been.
Friday, right? I didn't look on the calendar. No, and had I done this over again, I would have had it closed either Wednesday or the following Tuesday. But we have it closed on Friday, so the buyer wants in, they don't want to wait. So we're still closing on Friday. And
So the
thanks,
buyers are gonna pay 2 days, 3 days of extra interest, they're fine with it. But a lot of lenders don't want their buyers to pay additional interest, they want somebody else to do
yeah,
it.
that's a good tip. So look at your calendar, and as I had Danny show me on my phone, in the old days, those old people. you have these-
Where's Robert at? He's giving out calendars
You have a
too.
calendar where it shows all of
We
them.
have these desk calendars, and they have the dates and everything.
If you
and
text
can-
Robert, he'll bring you a
and you can
calendar.
see that. So on my iPhone, I'm looking at this, well, there's a dot. At the end of it. There's a dot that shows which days you have stuff on and which days you have holidays on, and you literally have to look at the specific. To me, it's a lot more time consuming than looking at your. Maybe that's my fault.
I had,
So check out the dates when you're closing. Make sure that you're recording on a Tuesday. You aren't recording on Monday, on a Tuesday through Friday, and that there's no holidays. And if Monday's a holiday, you gotta bump it. to
I would say
Wednesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday is probably your
Oh,
best
your
closing
safest,
date.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
But you can't have Tuesday if Monday's a holiday.
Well, besides Christmas and New Year's Eve, those are the only days that could probably fall on a Wednesday.
Who would have thought 4th of July would be celebrated on Friday, July 3rd?
honestly, in one of the, I think a calendar I saw, it specific, or on the offer, it specifically said, escrow to close Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, because if it closes Friday, chances are your sellers are not gonna get their money that day, they'll get it Monday.
Right, it was just like, okay, that clears that up.
Yeah, because if they close, and the reason for that money not being able to get there is we have so many closings, there's so many reports right now that we're not getting confirmation early enough to beat the wire cutoff time for the sellers. So we have some upset sellers who say, well, I gave them the keys, where's my money? And we're like, oh, I have, they're not getting it, not until Monday, and like, they're not happy. And some people have to move. So if you close on a Friday, that the chances are if your sellers will get their closing that day. We try, I try to get everything set up so that as soon as I get confirmation, I can release it, but it doesn't always happen.
I just say from a dinosaur. Here's what I do. I have a paper calendar.
Good for you.
When I sit down with a buyer, when we get the offer accepted, I sit down with the buyer and say, okay, here it is. You have to have your money in the escrow here, okay? And then we need to have our lender letter here, and we need to remove contingencies here. So if we remove contingencies here, that means you need to do the inspection back here. They're gonna say, well, you know,
Do you have
that's
Gmail?
my son's soccer
Jack,
game. Okay.
I'll
but
show you a free
Yeah,
way to do
but
that.
if you lay it out to them, they'll say, oh, yeah, I better get that appraisal started now on my home inspection, but you can show them that, and then you make sure you're closing on that date. But if they can see it, like, because most of the time the buyer says 17 days, that's not a problem. I'll do my home inspection the day before. No, you can't do it. So,
They don't,
But
they
by
don't
actually-
understand. how-
yeah, by
how it's
seeing
laid
it,
out.
they'll say, oh my gosh, and I got,
Sure, what happened to the fright? We all carried around the fright.
Exactly.
We all had casts that you wrote beside every
Yeah, mine was
day.
a daytimer. I had my purse I carried with me my whole career.
Danny, and you know.
Why don't we just add a calendar to
He
the
never-
summary sheet on the RPA, and then that solves all the problems, right?
He can do everything on his phone, so I need. Oh,
Yeah, but it's not visual. I do it on my phone, I forget to look at it. And then that goes out.
yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah, I need to see everything.
Okay, so we still have stuff to do here. Any other questions for Sue? Thank you. That's excellent. We're gonna do our drawings, and we gotta sing happy birthday. Any other last minute announcements? We have, who's donating the gift cards this month? You know?
No?
I think we still have one from Robert, so we can do $25 gift card.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what, do we have anything in the carryover?
We don't do it, we're gonna do one for,
Yeah, it's short.
So are we just doing for those present then, and not the?
And then we could do one for the rollover too.
Okay. But we don't know how much we've got in the rollover?
oh, yeah, I'll tell you.
Okay,
We have 4.
No, I can't do it on this one.
okay, so it'll actually be 5 then, counting this one? Right, so the rollover is for everyone, but you have to be present to win it.
We have 5 for the rollover because we haven't had a winner
That
yet.
includes this month,
Yes,
okay? So which one do you want to do first, Annie?
let's do the present one, people who are here.
Well, Present?
So that's just the 30 of us, right, 25 of us?
It's a $25 gift card.
Well, it's not flying on the screen, but I can. Spin it somehow. We have it as Carol.
Gillis.
Oh,
Woo!
This is going to our roast float celebration dinner fundraiser. I'm just gonna pass it through.
Yeah, we gift it?
In February. And we do something called a roast garden, and for $20 you get a gift card. So anyway, see me if you have any questions.
And then for all 265.
Right, and this is 5 gift cards.
Yes, and they're all $25 gift
But
cards.
you have to be present to win, and that winner is.
Audrey, she's not here. So it rolls over.
So
Okay, so we'll
next
announce-
month, we'll have 6 gift cards.
Right, have to be present to win. Okay, and how many November birthdays do we have? Look at 2, and so was it?
So we 3, and then
And
Susie,
Susie?
4.
Okay, so who wants to lead us in happy birthday?
Happy
birthday
birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. November birthday. Happy birthday to you.
All right, thank